Hello, and welcome to TheAquaPhi, the ESPN of Sci-Fi, your entertainment science fiction programming network, the entertainment sci-fi programming network. Buenos dias, bonjour, good morning, zhao shanghao, zhao an. And today we're going to talk about Marvel's Avengers Endgame and what it doesn't answer. Compare that with TheAquaPhi. And as you're reading TheAquaPhi, you see what TheAquaPhi comes up with and what TheAquaPhi answers, and how the Avengers Endgame does not answer it. And what is that? Well, it's not just the Avengers Endgame. It's Eternals, Matrix, Endgame. All of it comes up with the same thinking, right? Everything has to end because we're going to no more resources. The resources won't continue. Things have to end. And so then you restart it. And so that's what Thanos came up with, right? There's not enough resources in the universe, all the planets all over the universe. There's not enough resources for everybody. And so you have to kill off the population, right? In order for the population to restart all over again with the amount of resources that are left. Okay, so we might dwell a little bit off of science fiction. Well, we'll stay with science fiction because in science fiction, because of the word fiction, we can never be wrong. So we'll stay with science fiction. And hey, by the way, we are the ESPN of science fiction, so we can never be wrong. The concept is that there's overpopulation, too much people. And here with Thanos, there's too much people across so many planets. That not enough resources sort of universe wide. Is there such thing as overpopulation? Just take, for instance, this planet. And so, they came to this planet as well. And that's what got the Avengers against Thanos and company, because they came to this planet because of the overpopulation was going to reduce the resources, not enough for everybody. So let's kill off so much a percentage and then start all over. Eventually what would lead to same thing all over again, and you'd have to kill off again and start all over. And I'm not saying how many years would it happen, but the eventuality, because you're just repeating the same. And the AquaPhi cuts that short. But let's talk, before I get into the AquaPhi figuring this out, is there such thing as overpopulation? Take anywhere, like anywhere you live, and you're going to drive out to somewhere 3-4 hours away. And you're driving 3 or 4 hours away from where you live, there's all this empty space, all this empty land. How many people in the thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands could spread out throughout all this place? Now, if you spread people out, and not just in where you live. So if you think, because we live in a little city, and people tell you, oh, there's overpopulation, then you say that's true because your city is crowded. So the problem is there's overcrowded. There's no overpopulation. Everybody's squeezed in the city, and so it's overcrowded. And you think we got to get rid of some people. There's not enough resources because my city or town or village is overcrowded. Yeah, so the problem is overcrowding. The problem is not overpopulation. You don't live outside of your city, so when they throw this term of overpopulation, we say, oh, maybe they're right. No. Drive 3 or 4 hours, and you'll see all this empty, and spread out everybody in your city throughout this, and maybe people still have like 3 or 4 acres per person, right? I think there's an actor that calculated that there's 7 acres per every human being on the planet. So definitely 7 acres for every human being on the planet. It's not overpopulated. And if every human being is working those 7 acres, producing crops and what they need and what you need and what I need, and we're producing it for each other, Um, there's not a lack of resources neither. So there's no lack of resources and there's no overpopulation, right? So just think it through and think it out. You know, thankful for this actor that calculated that there is 7 acres for every human being, right? Even if you gave every human being, let's double that. Let's bring not all the human beings on the planet right now having 7 acres based on that calculation, but let's cut that acres in half and say 3.5 acres for every human being living. There's still another 3.5 acres for that same amount of humans that live today to come live on the earth again. So is it overpopulated? No, no, it's overcrowded because bunch bunch of people up in cities and villages because we want the same people to go to the same stores and buy from the same things and hear the same things and so if we're living that way, there's an overcrowdedness, and then we're going to tend to think what we're told that there's an overpopulation, and so we got to get rid of so many people in order for the earth resources to thrive, right? If you don't think that way and you spread people out and people start using the land and making the land produce more. And let's talk about non-usable land. Could we use non-usable land? I'm talking about the deserts, for instance. Is there a way to make the deserts useful? Some people live in the deserts. They've been living there for years. If they had more technology, could they put what thoughts they have of how to make it more useful to work if they had the money and the technology to do it? Well, let's talk to them and then let's find out. Let's try and see if that'll work. The other thing is there's so much land where you have so much corn and so much potatoes, and do we need all that corn? I don't know. If you want to put corn, sugar, and everything, yeah, maybe. I don't know. So, and then we're driving through, and then there's all this potato and all right, so maybe it's not a good use of all our resources, and it's not a good use of all our land. So maybe Thanos didn't calculate all that in his calculations when he goes to look for these stones in order to reduce the population of all the planets so that the resources can keep going. All right, so a little bit miscalculating there on the Thanos's part. You might have a different opinion, but this is the ESPN of sci-fi, and this is how we see it. The AquaPhi differentiates from that thinking because in the AquaPhi, let me go back a little bit to the end game. Same thing, thinking as the Matrix, same thing as Eternals. One after the onslaught and the reduction of the population, right? If you can't catch, and some of the Avengers are in a restaurant, and Hulk is now Dr. Banner Hulk as one person. So they're eating the burgers and they're talking. Uh, Everything continues the same as it was before. So if what happened before caused this reduction in population, this step that had to be taken, why not do things differently so that it doesn't happen again? But everything is continuing the same, so which will inevitably bring about the same. So we're dealing with different thinking, right? We're the same people in the AquaPhi that came up with underwater adventure and making it spacious. We're the same people that comes up with under space, what's down there. Now we're thinking outside differently, and so we have to think that way, right? Why not do something differently than before so that we don't repeat the same? Isn't that what history is? If you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. So then we know our history and then we repeat it anyway because we're not thinking differently. And so this is what the AquaPhi does differently. As you're reading the AquaPhi, it mentions how they rethought everything in our world. And what went wrong? What did we do wrong? What did we not see? How did we not analyze certain things correctly? And in this analysis, they came up with what was missing, the missing thoughts, the missing way of doing things, the missing qualities that they needed to show in order for things not to repeat themselves again. And so this is what the Aqua Phi does differently. Thinks slightly deeper, right? More deeper than Thanos, deeper than the Avengers Endgame, deeper than anybody's thinking, right? Even in the Matrix, right, where the architect wants to end everything and let it start all over again. But no, that's continuing it, but continuing it the same, where in the Aqua Phi, we're going to rethink, what did we do wrong? All that we did wrong, how do we not repeat that, right? Let's look at history, learn from it, and not repeat it. Let's not look at history, take a history lesson, learn, and keep doing the same thing. All right, so the Aqua Phi learns and puts into action, puts into place things that are difficult. Because now we're talking about putting into place a mindset, putting into place a way of doing things, which takes a lot more than just analyzing and discussing and making comments about it. But you have to actually do it. And so that's taking a lot more involved in doing that. So this is what the Aqua Phi does differently from Marvel Endgame and all these other ones, Matrix, Eternals, and all the other ones. So we're not restarting the same thing. We're taking a more in-depth look at what we're doing, and we're putting into ourselves how to do it differently, how to treat each other differently, coming up with different things. So don't forget, go into TheAquaPhi.com, the THE, Aqua, AQUA, Phi, P as in Paul, HI.com. Get the book. You see it's in depth. It's very deep about things that we are doing differently, right? So slightly different from what you're used to in sci-fi. A different look. And that's what we need, something fresh, something different, something new. And that's what we're getting from the Aqua Phi. So get your book, listen to the Aqua Phi theme song while we're reading, enjoy it, and we'll see you at the next podcast. The next podcast we're talking about, we're comparing Justice League Steppenwolf compared again to Thanos. We talked about Thanos today, but we're going to compare Thanos not to the Aqua Phi this time, but to Steppenwolf in the Justice League, and we'll take a look at that next time.